Oh, this video is going to be real fun. Real fun because I made the news. I made the news, everybody. I got two stories here. First, we're going to talk about why Buzzfeed failed, just for a little bit. Then we got this story. Journalist complains of being fired just days after mocking right-wing, in quotes, reporters pay, how will I afford my therapist? A reporter gloated that alternative journalist Tim Pool was not doing so well professionally just days before bemoaning losing her own job. Well, we'll talk about that, but first, I want to bring up this issue. Before I talk about how I'm doing and my business and our expansion and all that stuff, I want to bring up this story from New York Magazine about why Buzzfeed failed. So, I believe this is the paragraph we want to read. This focus drove Buzzfeed to figure out how to best exploit the next big online distribution channel, social media. And Buzzfeed's method of being big on social was the primary way they influenced and even defined much of the modern internet mainstream. In the same way that Peretti's previous project, Huffington Post, was predicated on aggressive search engine optimization and traffic from Google, Buzzfeed was premised on social referrals, which almost always meant traffic from Facebook. The fire hose of Facebook traffic that Buzzfeed was able to draw on sent other publishers scrambling to imitate them, and briefly spawned a cottage industry of viral media publishers specializing in aggressively upbeat videos and curiosity gap headlines. A headline like "Why Buzzfeed Doesn't Do Clickbait" forces you to click through to find out. The site tweaked its editorial strategy on the fly to harness the exponential benefits of social media, often before its competitors wised up. Instead of building a cohesive site identity, it aggressively narrowcasted. This is the important part. It targeted subgroups and niche audiences such as obsessive stans instead of trying to please everyone at once. Just as important, the site put up a big emphasis on giving editorial employees the technical capabilities to do their job well. Yeah, we don't care about CMS stuff. Huffington Post, Jonah Peretti Project, Buzzfeed, Peretti Project, both laying people off. Why? He didn't actually generate anything substantive. He exploited the internet. He exploited Huffington Post with SEO in the early days. It worked. He exploited viral clickbait with Buzzfeed. It worked. But it doesn't build an identity that people can associate with that they want to come back to. The most important thing here, it targeted subgroups. That's right. Something I warned Fusion about. I got hired by a company that was called Fusion. It was a joint venture between Univision and ABC News. And they were convinced that what they needed to do to survive was go far left, even to the point where they told me not to report the truth. In a meeting, I was told just side with the audience. I asked, if that means there is a factual story about an incident, we won't report it because it could offend our audience. I was told yes. This was repeated to me in front of about 40 people when covering the 2016 conventions. It was the Republican National and Democratic National Conventions. They said, we are going to side with the audience, and our audience are young, progressive, Gen Z millennials and such. They were wrong. They've since laid off tons of people. Tons of people got fired, but I will say this, Fusion notoriously overpaid. And this brings me to the next hilarious story of when these laid off journalists, apparently this woman who was mocking me didn't work for Huffington Post or BuzzFeed. I don't know where she worked, and nor did I actually care. But the funny thing about it is she claims that she hurt my feelings. So I'll say this, I appreciate her apologizing to me for believing that she hurt my feelings, but I think it's important to point out that seeing it was like three people make fun of me. Firstly, they were making fun of me for my take on Covington, which I was correct about. They were mocking me, being like, oh, geez. Someone said, could you remember when Fusion hired this guy? Because I was basically saying that narrative is wrong. Turned out a few days later, I was correct. The narrative was wrong. But not only that, a thread ensued where they started ragging on me, and she, hilariously, claimed that, one, I wasn't the future of journalism, two, that I wasn't doing too well, and then three, a few days later, got laid off. And here I am expanding, regularly talking about how we're going to be launching a new community newsroom on Minds for Subverse, how we're actually expanding, and I've purchased a high-top cargo van. Things are going pretty damn well. But let's take a look at how, I want to address the story from Pluralist, maybe make some corrections, at least as far as it pertains to me. So they had this quote, I found out I was getting laid off on my way out of my therapist's office. Unfortunate. I mean, I bear no ill will to this woman. She locked her account and blocked me. Sarah Morrison, a self-described liberal freelance writer for outlets including Vocative and The Guardian, mocked Pool in response to his Twitter takedowns last week of the medium's tantrum about the MAGA kids, the Covington High School students. Although her Twitter account was private, her posts have been preserved for posterity. I want to stop right now and do a full disclosure. She writes for outlets like Vocative. I was offered a high-paying role at Vocative, 6 figures, low to mid 6 figures, where they would have me host a primetime television show on a major cable channel. They wanted me for a lot of things, and I turned them down because Fusion paid more. Well, not because Fusion paid more money, but shortly after Fusion did pay more money. But essentially, the place she was a freelance writer for wanted me to be in a much higher position than she was. I'll point this out. There's Dave Rubin posted something. He said, "Great minds talk about ideas, large minds talk about events, and small minds talk about other people." And I think it's kind of a silly quote for the most part, because I talk about events, but I certainly wouldn't say, like, I talk about ideas too, and I talk about people too. It's like, I get it. The point is, these people sit around all day clueless as to how business works, making fun of me, and I'm doing really well. You may have noticed that I have 2 YouTube channels I regularly post to, and they gain like 1,000 subscribers per day. I'm about to break 300,000 subscribers on my main channel, 200,000 on this channel. It's going pretty good. And we're launching a new show at youtube.com/subversevideos, which is just more and more good news. But what happens is, these people sit around having no idea what's going on, no idea about business, but gloating about how well they are, how well off they are compared to other people when they're not. And if they focused on themselves more and developed themselves more and tried to do better for themselves to run a business and understand how business works, they might not be desperate to pay their therapists, okay, and getting laid off from their jobs. She said, "What happened to that guy?" Morrison joked of Poole on January 19th. "His Patreon isn't doing so well. I check in on him from time to time to LOL at my journalism professors, who proclaimed that he was the future of journalism because he live streamed Occupy Wall Street and owned a drone." And then a few days later, she got laid off, and here I am still working, doing better than ever. She added that while Poole was said to have been highly paid as a reporter for Fusion, now that he's independent, he makes only at least $2,000 a month, according to Patreon. I don't believe that number is public. It's not bad, but it's not a 6-figure salary, and it doesn't come with benefits, she said. First of all, I did respond to this on Reddit and on Twitter. The number she's citing from Patreon is after the Patreon exodus and after I stopped using the platform. And as many people know, the amount I was making on Patreon was publicized in the incident. It was, I'll just say right now, on Patreon, about $8,000 or $9,000 per month. Not so bad, and doesn't include all of my revenue streams. I don't just do this work. Believe it or not, I do other things. I have consulted tech firms, and I've consulted nonprofits. I am a professional individual, and most of you might not realize this, but this is just one thing that I do. I do other things, believe it or not. But this is what I'm talking about. The assumption that you can go to my Patreon after a bunch of people have already left at my request, saying please leave the platform, and then assume I'm broke. It's just like, I have never claimed to be broke, only the opposite. Everyone knows Fusion ridiculously overpaid people, okay? And I was there for 2 years, and I saved that money. But let's break down some of the things that are wrong about this. Another commenter followed up by calling Poole, whose live uncut coverage of the Occupy Wall Street movement led some to deem him the future of journalism, a shill for Trumpy chuds. One Twitter user sneered that as soon as Poole realized he could make barrels of money from the conservative new media grift, he essentially sold out. Poole, for the record, has said that he does not see himself as a member of either the political right or left. Well, this is wrong, and it also ignores a couple things. What he claimed was that during a live stream in Berkeley, that I realized I could make money from conservatives. But if you follow my work at all, you would know that in 2012, I was critical of Antifa. The black bloc types, they didn't call themselves Antifa at the time, and they physically attacked me on 3 occasions. So no, my criticism of the far left violence is not a new thing. I've been doing it literally since I've started working. He also says that I don't consider myself to be either political right or left. That's not true. Politically, I align with social liberalism. Not classical liberalism, which is a center-right position, social liberalism, which is a center-left position. In fact, I have taken the political compass test on numerous occasions, and I've only moved further left and down towards libertarian, which is surprising to me. They say, later that week, in a twist that was captured by a Redditor on the Kotaku Inachu subreddit, Morrison tweeted about losing her job and benefits. Responding to the Hollywood Reporter writer Jeremy Barr's reminiscence of losing a media gig, she wrote, "I found out I was getting laid off on my way out of my therapist's office. I'm sure that will be funny as soon as I get a new job and I'm not paying $800 a month for health insurance so I can continue to see this therapist." So I guess what they're saying is it's possible she was laid off at some time long ago. And she's claiming that she doesn't work for Buzzfeed, she said. Now here's the thing. I have no idea why the Pluralist followed through on this story, but hey, I have no problem commenting on it. In an email response to Pluralist interview request, Morrison said, "I don't see much of an upside to commenting and making this a bigger deal than it already somehow is, but I will say that I'm sorry Tim Pool's feelings were so hurt by my tweets. I never worked for Huffington Post or BuzzFeed, and I wasn't laid off last week." So first, I will say I really do appreciate it. I mean this sincerely. If she thought that my feelings were hurt because she was making fun of me on the internet, I really do appreciate that, and I mean this sincerely. I harbor no ill will towards this person. The things I'm talking about are more about the ideas and not Morrison, who I don't know and take no issue with her criticizing my work. You are free to do so by all means. But I want to point out the reason I'm doing this video is to address the idea that people don't understand how business works. And the reason I pointed out BuzzFeed's failures, the future of journalism, by all means, call me that or don't. I've never called myself the future of journalism, but I will point out, I left Fusion. Not too long after, fires everybody. I left Vice. Not too long after, fired everybody. Okay? And here I am successfully working, doing better than I've ever done. Because I do understand the shift in the landscape. I was using technology, I was doing live stream before anybody else. I joined these companies based off the success I had. I left when I saw them failing. I warned these companies. I told them what to do and they didn't want to do it, so I left when my contract ended. These people get laid off, not Sarah Morrison specifically, but BuzzFeed and Huffington Post. For 8 years, they said at BuzzFeed, not looking at the signs. BuzzFeed didn't last. They've laid tons of people off across the board. So again, I appreciate the apology that she thinks my feelings were hurt, but I will just point out that was one of the, that made my day, maybe even my week, where I burst out laughing. And the reason is, I have had so many people just attacking me and insulting me for as long as I've done this. I mostly just ignore them. But here was a person who thinks of themselves as, I guess more successful than me, and it's the weirdest thing ever to see people who aren't doing that well, are in therapy and are being laid off from their jobs, to criticize me. It's the weirdest thing. Sarah Jong, for instance, from the New York Times, claimed that my whole brand was surveilling protesters, and it's weird that these people are journalists and don't do any basic fact-checking. The idea that this woman would check in on me from time to time, but not know that I've produced documentaries that have been nominated for awards, that I was featured in magazines and received awards, or that my contract from Fusion was really big and that I'm doing better than ever. It's weird. It's almost like the intent was actually just to deride someone that you didn't actually understand. And it made me laugh. It makes me, the tears of these people who are haters, who are nasty, mean people. And I'm not saying her specifically. She apologized. I appreciate that. I'm not trying to be mean. But this exemplified how many people gloat, but then get knocked down a peg or two. My advice to all of the haters, the people who watch my channel and give me thumbs down every single time, stop worrying about other people. Focus on yourself. There are a ton of journalists I think are evil, pure evil. I rarely ever talk about them. Seriously. It's like I did one video about them in last year and one video this, I'm sorry, it was 2017. I made a video about a group of journalists who are posting fake news, and then I made one recently. For the most part, I don't. Why? What am I gonna do if I make videos just attacking other people? For the most part, not effective. But I'll tell you what I can do. Build up myself, work on my career, and solve these problems, be effective. So they go on to make some other statements. They said that I was promoting the recently viral Learn to Code meme. That's also rare. That's really unfair. I was reporting on it and commenting on the issue and criticizing a journalist for taking issue with it. But then they go on to say the conservatives are having fun watching the media, burn. I'll say this one last thing before I sign off this long video. There is a certain amount of joy I do get when I see these businesses fail, not because I want them to fail, but because it shows me that I'm right. And every single time I warn these companies, this is what's going to happen, they don't listen. Shane Smith, the CEO of Vice, said there would be a bloodbath in digital media. They didn't listen to him either. So you know what? There's going to be successful entrepreneurs who understand how business works, and they're not going to sit around posting on Twitter just attacking and mocking and insulting other people because it just makes you look silly. Yeah, whatever. I shouldn't have even made this video, but you know what? I did, so there you go. I wanted to do this video because I hope the idea resonates with many people who are listening. If you want to be successful, stop worrying about these other people, plain and simple. And that's why it didn't hurt my feelings. It made me laugh because I mostly don't care, don't pay attention. But I will add one more thing. To all of the haters who talk about me all day and insult me and make up lies about me, I just want to let you know, it makes me laugh. It brings me great joy to see the obsession. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up in the south side of Chicago, be homeless several times, and then all of a sudden one day you find yourself the target of some random person's ire and obsession? I'm like, wow, I really must matter to these people. That means a lot coming from nothing. It really does. And to all the people who appreciate and respect my work, you mean a lot more. Seriously, and I really appreciate all the support from everybody. Hopefully, as we launch Subverse and bring this community together, we can utilize this collective, distributed network we have, along with other, personalities who produce news, and make something new and better, and it will lift all of us up. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the main channel at 4 p.m., tomorrow on this channel, tomorrow, 10 a.m.